Types of corrosion. Well, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with steel. Early in my career, one of my mentors said, Ed, you're a really smart guy. You're going to have problems with only two things in your career, corrosion and bad data. Boy, was he right. There's a lot of types of corrosion. Uniform corrosion doesn't happen very much. A little bit on the inside of pipes. We're not going to talk about that. Pitting corrosion. That's the big one. Steel is susceptible to pitting corrosion. We're going to talk about that a great deal, and a little bit about stress corrosion cracking. All these other ones, well, they're there too, always waiting to get you somehow. Here's some examples of pitting corrosion on a steel pipe. There's all kinds of different kinds of pits. What I found particularly interesting about these pictures is this I-beam here. Now you'd think that that's in salt water, right? Something bad going on. Nah, that's on a dock over by Manitowoc. Fresh water, particularly in the splash zone, is very corrosive. How many kinds of pitting corrosion are there? There's lots of kinds of pits you can get. Narrow, deep ones, shallow, wide ones, elliptical ones, all kinds. I wanted to just give an example. I needed something that was corroded. Well, when I was rehabbing one of my houses, I was digging up by where there used to be a coal bin, and I found this horseshoe. This horseshoe, I blasted part of it clean so you can see. There's a great example of intergranular pitting corrosion. Corrosion is never uniform. Averages mean nothing in the corrosion game. One of the problems that you get into because of pitting corrosion is that these pits, when a pit forms here, this is the wall of a piece of pipe that's been sectioned, it's not carrying any of the load anymore. So the load has to go here. The load is stronger here than it is in this area, so cracks can initiate. Here's one that initiated from the bottom of the pit. Stress and corrosion make these cracks grow all by themselves. If they get big enough, you have some issues. Here are two good examples of the combination of pitting corrosion and stress corrosion cracking with hydrogen sulfide around. First one is good old Enbridge 6B. You know, some records are good to hold. Holding the record for the biggest inland pipeline break ever is a real good record. What you see, here's the crack where it started, right here. This crack was about 10 feet long. It made what's called a fish mouth opening of the pipe, and that's where they pumped 1 million gallons, plus or minus, of oil into the river before they figured out they weren't doing the right thing. Right where the crack initiated up here, there's a lot of pitting corrosion. Something that was very interesting about that, and which is very well understood, and I will talk a little bit more about it later, is Enbridge knew that those cracks were there. They imaged those cracks a couple times over a 5-year period. There were several cracks from 5 to 9 inches long, and they didn't take any action. They just let them sit there until they grew enough to reach critical length. They ran and broke. This is Enbridge claims that can never happen again. Plains All-American, same deal. This is the one that broke last summer in oil-town Refugio State Beach, California, right by Santa Barbara. One of the most beautiful heritage beaches I've ever seen. Why did it break? Well, good Lord, look at the condition of this pipe, where they got it. There's huge pits. Indeed, the investigation isn't finished. I can't say much more about that, but from witnesses that were there, this pipe was so pitted and rotted that you could stick a screwdriver through the wall of it, and yet they were still running it. They knew, but there's allegations of fraudulent ILI data analysis. Somebody may go to jail for this. Now you got something special here. You're the second group of people to see this. After I gave one of my talks, a person came out of the woodwork and said, hey, I've got some pictures of Line 5 that we're taking. Oh, really? Pictures? We like pictures. This is where they dug up Line 5 near a place called Learning Road off Eagle's Nest Road. There used to be a pumping station there. But what we see is a part of the pipe that they've dug up for some reason, and what we see here is exactly what a corrosion expert would expect to see. That there's a bunch of pitting corrosion on this pipe. This pipe is not in the condition, I think somebody has said, good as new, like new. Not going to say anything about that. This pipe seems to be, to me, in exactly the shape that a corrosion engineer would expect a 62-year-old pipe to be in. Another thing that's very interesting, when you look at all these pictures, is there's some very dark, clumpy soil under the pipe. It appears to be oil. I can't say that for sure. Why in the world did they dig this up? I don't know. I got 3 stories. One worker told people there had been a leak. It would be a pinhole leak, not catastrophic failure. Another person said there was a bulge. Sometimes pipes will bulge. This, better pay attention to that because that's that far from breaking or blowing. The third story was a little more interesting. And this came from a pretty good source. They said they had to cut a section out of the pipe because right where this pipe is, the pipe sneaks under I-75. Pipe was down before I-75. I-75 was in the late 50s. They said the pipe was collapsing, and so they sleeved it. They pushed a sleeve through the pipe because to prevent it from collapsing under I-75. That doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy at all. There's usually 2 ways to fix things, the right way and the expedient way. I guess they didn't want to dig up I-75, but it may well have made this stretch of pipe very, very difficult to find any cracks or anything else. That picture I consider to be very important. It's the only known picture of Line 5 exposed to where somebody like me can look at it and say, look at those corrosion pits. And really, I mean, these don't look very big, but remember, that's a 30-inch diameter pipe. 30-inch pipe, some of those pits are pretty deep. Let's talk about inline inspection, because this is how you dare run a rusty, leaky, potentially leaky old pipe, is you run these pipeline inspection gadgets through it. It's a very big business. Most of it, the pigs, they're very, very sophisticated instruments. They're not something that pipeline companies usually do. Like everything else, stuff gets contracted out. GE is one of the biggest ILI contractors in the world. They'll do anything from sell you a pig and wish you good luck to come up with a complete integrity management pipeline program. To me, it's a little like selling protection, but they say, here's their thing. Together with our customers, our goal is 0 pipeline failures. Here's what a pig looks like. This is a pretty complex one. It's pushed through the pipe by the oil. You launch it in what's called a pig launcher. What you got is a branch of the pipe. The oil normally goes this way. You've got a chamber here. You can put the pig in and close the door. Once you got her ready to go, you close this valve, open this one, and the oil pushes it off on down the pipe. What you see in all these pictures, the loop of pipe coming up, that's either a pig launcher or a pig catcher. You can't run the pigs through the pump stations, obviously, so you got to catch them and relaunch them on the other side of the pump station or whatever you plan to do. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but they got a lot of kinds of pigs at GE. They have a pig for every integrity challenge. Well, not quite. You look at this chart, and you know, up here you got the green dots. That's the best. But this open dot, that's optional. I don't really see any open dots here. Yeah, actually we do. We see some open dots where right here, can't we really, these things don't work so well on, circumferential cracks, like the one that broke the Bridger, by the way. They have trouble finding those with the pigs. What do they look like really? Well, they have all kinds of instruments. Most of them are magnetic of different kinds. They have ultrasound. They have some X-ray capability. And certainly they have feelers that feel the walls like little whiskers. This is an ultrasonic array on one of these. Each of those knobs is either a sender or a receiver, and so they can do an ultrasound of the whole pipeline. Very sensitive technology. They can find things. This is a stress corrosion crack colony, just like took out line 6B. No trouble finding it, but then you got to do something. This is what ILI data looks like in its rawest form. These things, you got to imagine, taking an ultrasound of every inch of a 100-mile-long pipeline produces a lot of data. Indeed, 100 kilometers of 24-inch pipeline generates around 100 terabytes of data. Okay? Your big disk drives, they hold a gigabyte, so you need 1,000 of those to hold a terabyte, 100,000 of them. Obviously, they don't have that on these pigs, which are battery powered, so they do a lot of processing on board and compress it. And they put out a graphic like this that shows you all the features you find. In this graphic, this is the distance down the pipe. This is looking, 0 is the top, down to 180, that's the bottom. And these computer programs are very sophisticated, they warn people. There was a question at the governor's pipeline task force. They asked for inspection data. Enbridge didn't give them inspection data, but they gave them access to a raw data file through a protected server. Nobody can work with one of these raw data files except the company that made the pipeline pig. And you need a supercomputer. That was very, and that was not responsive to the governor's request. I will show you in just a minute how all the data from a 100-mile pipeline run can be cooked down to one graph that you can understand. But before I get there, we're getting real close to the end here, and get into some questions, is you go through the pipeline engineering journals, and you find they got a legal section. It's not all engineering. The lawyers got their piece. And they got a lot of stuff in there like this, legal issues in pipeline integrity programs. And this is all how to not get your own data used against you fundamentally to show that you've been negligent. Really what it says is don't give it up or you're screwed. Aye, sir. So now we're down to the end of this thing. We're going to try and answer the question that was posted on the post. How safe is it?